The ween is a state of mind, you know? Hello friends, foes, and those still under review, welcome back to my channel. Today's a very exciting day because we're gonna go through my Summerween TBR. If you've never heard of Summerween before, it's fairly self-explanatory. It's Halloween just in the summer. It's been an increasingly big thing the last few years, and I could not be more thrilled about that. I even have my Halloween earrings that my gran bought me when I was like 13 on just to celebrate, even though I'm pretty sure I'm allergic to them. I don't know what Avon was putting in their earring posts back then, but I'm pretty sure they're not hypoallergenic, so I am probably gonna regret it later. But, you know, I've been missing my gran a little bit lately, so here they are. I apologize for any chomping and or panting you may hear in the background. I am babysitting today, so I have a little friend behind the camera. So there is an actual Summerween reading challenge on Instagram hosted by another girl here on YouTube called Gabby Reads. I think this year that specific reading challenge even has its own Instagram, so I'll make sure that those are linked down below for you to find. As far as I know, the challenge itself only lasts for about 5 or 6 days. It's between July 5th and 12th. But I will be doing it all summer long. As my fellow spooky girlies know, spooky season never really ends. The ween is a state of mind, you know? Anyway, since I don't want to take up too much of your time, grab yourself a beverage and let's go. So we'll go through my TBR first and I'll run you through everything I plan on reading in the next couple of months. And then if you happen to be looking for suggestions to round yours out a little bit, I'll give you a bunch of those too. So I'll make sure all the timestamps and stuff are in the description below so you can find what parts you're interested in and whatnot. So I think we'll start with my physical TBR first because I have a bunch just hanging out on my shelf that I have been intending to read for a long time. Really bad for picking up random books at like the grocery store or at Walmart or at Winners, just because I like go to a lot of doctor's appointments for my arthritis and stuff like that. You know, I'll end up reading like the first third of it in the waiting room and then put it down and just totally forget about it. Not because it was a bad book, but because it's just the way my brain works, I guess. So yeah, I'm hoping to knock off this particular stack over the next couple of months. Brief Skeeter interlude for anyone that needs it. Something you'll notice is that there's quite a few YA coded books on this particular TBR, and that's because I'm not sure what it is about Summerween. It's more like summer camp slasher vibes than it is like paranormal, if that makes sense. You know, or like Creature from the Black Lagoon, that kind of thing. Less like ghosts and demons and whatnot. It's more Fear Street 1978, if that makes sense. That's kind of where my brain goes when I think about summer horror. So there is a lot more of that on there, but there's some other stuff too. First one on my stack is Girl 1 by Sarah Flannery Murphy. I got this one secondhand at the Calgary Reads Big Book Sale that happened a few weeks ago. Bear in mind that having not read any of these particular books yet, all of the information I'm going to give you comes off the book blurb and what I could get off Goodreads and the Storygraph without giving myself too many spoilers. So, this book is about a bunch of girls who were conceived experimentally without the use of male DNA and then raised on this compound type thing called the homestead. There are a few groups of people, and I'm sure we can guess which ones, but aren't super happy about this because it disrupts the natural order of things and whatnot. The homestead gets destroyed in a fire and it kills 2 of the homesteaders. So the mothers take the girls and disappear into the rest of the United States. They kind of just scatter. And so one day, Josie, who is girl number 1, her mother disappears, and so she has to go and reunite with the rest of the girls and figure out where her mother is and come face to face with the people that think they shouldn't exist. So this one looks really good. I'm really excited about it. Next is Girl 11 by Amy Suter Clark. I got this one secondhand at a Goodwill in Calgary. This is about a woman named Elle who was a former social worker who used to work with younger victims of violent crimes. She now has a podcast which covers missing and abducted girls. She's been solving these cases successfully for the past 4 years, so she decides she's ready to take on one of the bigger fish in her area of expertise, and that's the Countdown Killer. Now, the Countdown Killer abducted and murdered kind of ritualistically 3 girls over the course of 7 days. And the weird thing about this is that each subsequent girl was 1 year younger than the girl before her. After he abducts the 11-year-old, everything just abruptly stops, and he's never seen or heard from again until a listener gives Elle a tip. This tip leads her to the remains of the person that police suspect to be the killer. But it sounds like Elle doesn't really believe he's dead, and that seems to be confirmed when an 11-year-old is abducted. And the 11-year-old in question seems to fit the profile of the Countdown Killer almost exactly. And so she has to grapple with the fact that perhaps her podcast is, you know, inciting more of these abductions and so on. I'm very excited about this one. The blurb sounds great. So the next one is Beast by Richard Van Camp, and I am very, very excited about this one, partially because of the cover art. Like, look at that. That's gorgeous. This is set in 1980 1986 in the Northwest Territories. It's about a 17-year-old boy named Lawson who is Dogrib First Nations. And so the Dogrib and the Chippewayan have a pact between the two of them to kind of keep peace, because apparently way back in the day they fought each other quite viciously. And so Lawson and his family do their best to keep up their end of this pact with the Cranes family, who's not as interested in keeping the peace apparently. So Silver Cranes has apparently involved himself with a spirit who is not very keen on keeping things the way they are. He wants the return of the bloodshed and everything. So the story kind of follows that, and it sounds, I don't know, it just sounds really fun. I haven't read any of Van Camp's other stuff, but he comes very highly recommended, and so I'm very excited to dig into this. The whole premise of the story just sounds fascinating. This one might be the first one I reach for. Next up is Last Girl Ghosted by Lisa Unger. So a woman meets a guy on a dating app. They're really hitting it off. They meet up. She thinks it might be just a quick hookup, but she kind of falls for the guy. So she's very excited for this to continue, but as soon as things start to get a little bit more serious, the guy ghosts her. He just disappears. He disconnects his phone. He disconnects his dating profiles and stuff. And so she's heartbroken. She thinks maybe she did something wrong, but then she learns that it's not just her that this has happened to. This has happened to a bunch of other women, and a lot of those women have disappeared. So she kind of goes on the hunt for him and tries to find him before she disappears. And so, I don't know, it sounds interesting. I'm excited for this one to make me afraid of going on a dating app ever again in my life. So next up is Hemlock Island by Kelly Armstrong. This is one that I read in a doctor's office, and I probably got through like a solid third or a half of it, so I kind of know what I'm getting into, and so I'm, excited to actually finish it. About a woman named Lainey who is forced to rent out her vacation home after her divorce because it's the only way that she'd keep it. She's not really keen on having strangers in her space, understandably. That's how she's gonna pay for this going forward. But the last little while, all of her tenants have been like leaving in fear, like they've just been fleeing the place, and this is the kind of island where you can only get to it via boat. So people are being chased off by little things like items being broken with no explanation, and little fires that start as just a nice campfire, but then for no apparent reason turn into a fire that could destroy the whole house. And then those things kind of slowly ramp up to like bloody bones being found in the living room, to it looks like nail marks in the inside of the guest room closet, like somebody's trying to get out. So, she has to go investigate because, something is very clearly wrong there. Packs up her teenage niece and heads to this house to kind of investigate, but when she gets there, she realizes that her ex-husband and his sister, who is her ex-best friend, they've heard about what's going on and they want to see what's happening too. Like, something is very obviously wrong, so they're concerned. And then one of their high school friends and her cop brother shows up, so it's kind of a full house, and so they go out to this island and the boat disappears, and so they're stuck there, and it becomes increasingly clear that the thing that's there does not want them to leave. So I am very excited to finish this. I'm glad that I remembered that I had it. So next up is Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter. This is another one of those ones that I bought and then read maybe a third of in the doctor's office and then promptly forgot that I had it upon returning home. So it's about the death of a guy named Luke Ryder, who is the stepfather of a filmmaker named Guy Howard. And so this happened when Guy was a kid. He was only 10 years old, I think, but this happened in 2003, and so the case has gone unsolved for many, many years. And so now Netflix has decided to do a 6-episode series on it. This is all fictional, by the way. So the cool thing about this book is it's told in like the scripts of the TV show and the autopsy reports and like actual like case files from this fictional case. And the goal is to solve the murder before the end of the book. So like you as the reader get to solve the murder. And so that's really fun. I don't know who did it. I still haven't finished it, but I'm excited to get back to this one because that's the whole reason I bought it in the first place, is because it looked like a lot of fun. The last one on my physical TBR is The Girls Who Disappeared by Claire Douglas. So from what I gather, this book is about a road called the Devil's Corridor in Wiltshire in the UK, and it's a road that a lot of like weird haunted stuff seems to happen on a lot of the time. But one night 4 girls get into a car accident and only one of them is found. The other 3 disappear seemingly without a trace. On the 20th anniversary of the accident, a journalist named Jenna goes to Wiltshire to look into things a little bit more, but the people there are very, very unhappy with her presence. Olivia, it sounds like, is very unhappy with her presence, and so she needs to get out of town as soon as possible. This is one that sounds really creepy and spooky, and I'm very excited for it. That's the last of the physical books. Now we get to the digital and audiobooks that I've gotten from Libby, and I have these either borrowed right now or on hold for later in the summer. So we'll start with A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I've had a couple people recommend this one to me, and it looks really good. It is about the Barrett family in New England, and so the family, it sounds like, are already under a little bit of like financial and emotional stress when their 14-year-old daughter Marjorie starts exhibiting symptoms of schizophrenia. While they're having her evaluated and treated for that, they begin to believe that she might not have schizophrenia, she might be possessed. possessed. And so they call in a priest, and this priest calls in a reality show, and they attempt to do an exorcism on Marjorie. It sounds like the story is told largely from the perspective of her younger sister, so that sounds interesting to me, like to get somebody else's perspective on it who might not have a super vested interest on being like reality TV famous, so I'm excited for that one. Next, also by Paul Tremblay, is the Pallbearers Club. This is set in the late 1980s, and it is about a 17-year-old student named Art Barbara who starts the Pallbearers Club in his high school. So this club is for kids who want to go and be pallbearers at funerals that are poorly attended, that kind of thing. Art's not a very cool kid, so one day when the quote-unquote coolest girl he's ever met decides to join this club and wants to be his friend, he's very excited about that, but there's just something a little bit off about this girl. Like she knows weird things, she's got weird habits, and then weird things start to happen when she's around. Later in his life, Art decides to write a memoir about it just to try to make sense of things in his head. And somehow this girl from high school gets her hands on the manuscript of his memoir, and she's not very happy about what she's written. So the last line in the book blurb is, "And now she's making cuts," and something about that line I'm very excited for that story. Next is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This is a book about two girls, Abby and Gretchen, who have been friends since the 5th grade, but when they get to high school, Gretchen starts acting a little bit weird. When Gretchen's behavior and some like really strange coincidences and stuff start to add up a little bit, Abby decides that she needs to save her best friend, so she goes on a quest to exorcise her. That's one that sounds really fun. The cover is super fun. I don't know what it is about 80s nostalgia. Like, I was born in 91, so I don't know what it is about that time period specifically. I love it. I'm very excited for it. And then also by Grady Hendrix, the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, which is one that my sister recommended to me like a year and a half ago, and I haven't gotten around to it, so here you go, Kylie. We're on it now. This is about a nurse named Patricia Campbell who gave up her career to become a wife and a mother, but she's starting to regret that decision a little bit now, it sounds like. So the only thing that's keeping her alive is her book club, made up of other mothers from her area. And so they talk about like thrillers they've read or true crime and stuff like that, until a new neighbor moves in and he becomes the talk of the book club. You know, everybody seems to like him until kids start disappearing, and then Patricia's like, hey, this is kind of weird, I'm gonna look into this, and she apparently finds something that she does not like the sound of, so it's just her and the book club against this guy. And so that, I don't know, that sounds like a lot of fun to me. My sister said it's really good, so I trust her judgment. Next up is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Callan Barron. It's about a girl named Charity who has a summer job acting as the final girl at Camp Mirror Lake, which is what they call a full contact terror game where they reenact scenes from a movie called The Curse of Camp Mirror Lake. It was a slasher film apparently, and this just sounds like fun, and I want to see if they have one of these in real life, because like I'd pay for that. But apparently the last weekend of the season, her coworker starts disappearing, so Charity and her girlfriend need to figure out who the killer is before they are the next victims. I'm excited for that one too. I feel like I'm saying that a lot. I'm just excited for all of these, honestly. It's gonna be a good summer. Next up is Dead Girls Walking by Sammy Ellis. It's about a girl named Temple Baker whose father is a serial killer. He's convicted of killing 20 people. While he's on death row, he confesses that Charity's mother was one of them, and Charity doesn't really believe that. So Temple finds out that the farm that she grew up on and where her father hunted, I guess for lack of a better word, has been turned into a camp for queer horror-obsessed girls, which honestly also sounds like a lot of fun. She decides to go and pose as a camp counselor there to see if she can find her mother's body, and so she has to keep her identity a secret while she's there. But then campers start going missing, so she has to figure out a way to keep everybody safe while also investigating her mother and figuring out if like one of her father's fans is the one that is doing these killings as like a copycat thing, or if there's something scarier out there in the woods, which sounds terrifying and right up my alley. So next is Swarm by Jennifer D. Lyle, which is about giant butterfly type creatures that basically shut down the town that 16-year-old Sher lives in. Apparently these creatures multiply by parasitic load, so Sher needs to figure out how to keep herself, her two brothers, and her two brothers' best friends safe from whatever's outside the house. So that one sounds terrifying, but also like a really good read. Next up is Flawless Girls by Anna Marie McLemore. And so the Solar Sisters, there's two of them, there's Isla and Renata, are sent to Allery House by their grandmother, and Allery House is apparently a very top-rate finishing school, and Isla lasts a whole day there before she decides, nope, this isn't for me, I'm going home. But Renata makes it a month, and when she gets home, the back of the book says that she's unnervingly polite, pleasant, and quite possibly murderous, and she just apparently disappears the night that she gets back. So her grandmother is trying to find Renata, but Isla decides that she's going to re-enroll at Allery House because she's sure that that has something to do with her disappearance, so she goes there to figure out what's going on. It sounds almost like that season of Riverdale where Jughead has to go to the fancy school for writers and whatnot. It has that kind of vibe, but like not terrible like Riverdale was, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's one that I'm excited for. I think I have the audiobook of it. So this last one is an audiobook that I started last night and I got about 1 or 2 chapters in, I think. But it's Gorgeous Gruesome Faces by Linda Chang, and is about a girl named Sunny Lee who was a teen K-pop star in the US, and she was in a group with her friends Candy and Mina. But there was some kind of scandal that led to like the end of their career, and also Mina jumping off of her balcony to her death in front of Candy and Sunny. A couple of years later, Sunny finds out that there's a K-pop workshop being held in the town that her and her mom are currently living in, and that her ex-bandmate Candy is going to be at this workshop. So she decides that she's gonna try out for it. She's gonna go confront Candy because she's got some like trauma related to the event that she needs some closure on. But while she doesn't really get that from Candy, she gets haunted instead. Like she's seeing like ghostly visions of Mina and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, one by one, her competitors start to get weird injuries, and they start to get even stranger mutilation type things that happen to them. So Sunny needs to figure out who's causing this and why and how to stop it before she, you know, meets the same fate, essentially. And I'm only like 2 chapters in, but it's really, really good so far. I love the style of the writing and stuff. There's the whole premise of it. It's super interesting. And it's like K-pop inspired, which is super fun. Those are all of the books that are on my personal Summerween TBR. So if you're with me this long, let's get into some of my recommendations if you are looking to round out your own. So I've got it organized into sections kind of, or at least I have, you know, tried. I have 2 true crime that I think would be really fun to read this time of year. The first one is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. So this is about the Golden State Killer, and it was published posthumously by her husband Patton Oswalt. Michelle McNamara passed very suddenly and unexpectedly in her sleep in 2016, and she was in the middle of writing this book when she passed. Patton Oswalt was like, you know what, she put a shit ton of work into this. So her lead researcher finished the book. He got some help from people like Billy Jensen and Paul Holes. I know there's like some very, we've learned some things about Billy Jensen since then, but regardless, Michelle did a wonderful job of this book, and her lead researcher did an even better job finishing it for her. I think she'd have been proud of how he did with this. But basically it follows the Golden State Killer, you know, his crimes, what he did, how the case just went cold for a while. It follows her investigation of the guy and trying to find him and how close she got. And yeah, eventually they did catch the guy with familial DNA, and so there is a bit of that in here. So yeah, this was really good. If you are a true crime girly, this belongs on your shelf somewhere. My other true crime pick is The Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule. This is the Ted Bundy story, told from someone who worked with him at the suicide hotline that he volunteered at. Anne Rule, if you are unfamiliar, used to be a police officer in Seattle before she became a writer, and so she has all of her books. If you have not picked up any true crime, highly, highly, highly recommend her if that's something you're interested in, because her work is just amazing. But this one in particular, it just goes to show you how dangerous people like Ted Bundy are, because this woman has so much experience in this field particularly, and she didn't know. Like, she thought that Ted Bundy was a great guy, she thought that he was just charming, and he used to walk her to her car at night when she was done with her shift at the hotline, and because he just wanted her to be safe, he's like, there's weird people out there. He would know. But yeah, so this is just a really interesting read, so I would highly recommend giving it a shot. If you are a demon person and you want some spooky demon recommendations, I got a couple for you. Andrew Piper. Literally anything by Andrew Piper. He's great at this stuff. So first one is The Demonologist, about an English professor who specializes in John Milton, specifically Paradise Lost. So this professor is an atheist. He doesn't really think that much exists beyond, you know, what we can see. When you're dead, your lights out, that's it. Demons don't exist, angels don't exist. None of it exists. He's a total skeptic, you know, fair enough, right? But he gets invited to Venice to see what this woman calls a phenomenon. And so he packs up his 12-year-old daughter, gets on a plane, they go to Venice, and he sees the phenomenon, and this starts just a horrible, terrifying journey through the pages of Paradise Lost, essentially. Not physically, but metaphorically. So he's got to read through the entirety of Paradise Lost, find the clues, you know, stuff like that, and he needs to figure out what this woman and this book is trying to tell him, or he's gonna lose his daughter forever. Really, really good. Really good. The next is The Damned, which is about a guy who writes a memoir about the day he almost died in a house fire as a child. And this is the house fire that did end up killing his twin sister Ashley, but he can't really enjoy the success that he has made because Ashley won't let him. Like, she's been haunting him since she died. Apparently when she was alive, she was just a budding psychopath that used to terrorize her entire family, so now she just terrorizes her brother Danny from beyond the grave. And so now that he has a wife and a stepson and is, like, you know, moving towards actual happiness, she just can't stand this. She hates him for still being alive, essentially, and so she sets her sights on them. And so Danny's got to figure out a way to stop her, and so that's that story. Again, really good. Anything by Andrew Piper, honestly, really good. I highly recommend it. So if you want more of a thriller, true crime, but fictional type vibe, these next three are for you. The first one I have is The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. This one's a classic. Forgive my very beat up secondhand copy. Now, this is one of those stories where you kind of know what it's about, even if you've never read it or watched the movie, because like it's so ingrained in popular culture, I guess. Way better than the movie, but that's usually the case anyway. This is about a young FBI trainee named Clarice. So Clarice gets called in by the head of the behavioral science section to consult on a serial killer case. A serial killer by the name of Buffalo Bill. Anyway, he sends Clarice to interview a guy named Hannibal Lecter, otherwise known as Hannibal the Cannibal, because he has a habit of eating people. Because of Hannibal Lecter's background and his ability to get into the criminal psyche, he is a resource for them when they're investigating this guy, because so far they have no leads. They're gonna go interview Dr. Lecter to kind of get his take on the case. So the story kind of follows that and the hunt for Buffalo Bill and everything like that. So this is really good. Give this one a try. Next up is Copycat by Alex Lake. This one's about a Facebook profile. So this is about a woman named Sarah who discovers when an old friend reaches out to her that there are 2 Facebook profiles of her and only one of them is hers. And so the other one is suspiciously good. Like, it's got posts of all of Sarah's activity with her family and her kids, and it's got pictures of the inside of her house, and like it basically is like a play-by-play of her life. But she's not the one that has put this profile together, so someone is very obviously stalking her. She decides that she wants to figure out who the hell made this profile and who is, impersonating her online, and that's kind of where the trouble starts, and it gets so much worse from there. So this was really good. I enjoyed this. Give it a shot. And then the last one in this category is one that I just read about a week ago. That would be Do Not Open by Kirsten Modglin. This book is about an author named Mary. One day, Mary gets an email from a producer in Hollywood saying, "Hey, my wife and I love your books. We'd like to get together, talk about maybe making one of your books in a movie. Do you want to go for coffee?" And so she thinks it's a scam at first, but she looks into the guy. The guy looks legit, but there's not really pictures of him online or anything. He doesn't have like a huge internet presence, but his company seems to be doing well. And so she's like, yeah, sure, this looks legit. And so they email back and forth a bit, and the plan somehow changes to her going to his and his wife's house for dinner, which she isn't overly comfortable with, but she doesn't want to make a huge deal out of it and risk, this movie deal. So she does the thing that we all do, and she gives the address that she's going to her best friend. Is like, okay, if you don't hear from me, send the cops. She goes to this guy's house. Surprise, surprise. He does not have the best of intentions for her, and she shouldn't have gone there in the first place, but it is what it is. And so the book kind of follows her escaping from that situation. I listened to the audiobook. It was really, really good. I did not catch the twist at the end. I did not see that coming, but since I just finished it last week, it'll be in my June reading wrap-up, so stay tuned for that. I'll make sure to link it in the cards as soon as it's up. But yeah, next, if you would like something with a more Silent Hill vibe, I'm gonna recommend Dark August by Katie Tallow. So this book starts out with Augusta, or Gus, finding out that her great-grandmother has died and left her everything. So the house that she grew up in, basically, after her mom died. Her great-grandma was her only living family, so she goes home to kind of clean up the house so she can sell it, because she's not in like the best place in her life, I guess you could say. But while she's cleaning up, she finds her like childhood toy trunk, and in this trunk that she has not seen since her mother passed away are all of her mother's old cold case files. And her mother was a disgraced detective who died in a car accident when Gus was really small. And so she's like, you know what the hell, I'm gonna try to solve this case. It's like largely connected to a very rich family that lived in this town that exploded, basically. The town itself didn't explode, there was some kind of toxic explosion that kind of contaminated the area, and then there was a fire, and so everybody that lived in town had to flee, basically. So it definitely has a very, very Silent Hill vibe to it, so if that's the kind of thing you're into, cannot recommend this one enough. It's one of my favorites. If you're more of a creature feature person, I'm going to recommend Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. This is another one of my favorites. The audiobook is just fantastic. Can't recommend this one enough. So it's about a marine biologist that joins a research vessel going to investigate the Mariana Trench in order to find out what may have happened to her sister and the crew that she was with when they were filming a mockumentary about mermaids. So when her sister and her crew went out to film this mockumentary, everybody on the ship just disappeared. Ship itself was found totally empty. There was blood everywhere, no one around. That was very suspicious to them. There was no sign, any indication that there was like another ship in the area. It's like everybody on that boat just disappeared into thin air. And so this next research vessel is sent out to figure out like what may have happened to them, and then do some research in the Mariana Trench on the side. The Mariana Trench, if you were not aware, has something called the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest point in the the ocean that we are aware of anyway. And so there's lots of cool things to be seen down there, supposedly. I personally have no desire to know what's down there, but they pack up a bunch of marine biologists and geologists and oceanographers and of course another camera crew, and they put them all in this boat and they head off to the Mariana Trench. And really the only detail that you need to know to get you to read this book if you are a creature feature person is vicious mermaids. If that doesn't hook you, I don't know what will. But yeah, there is a prequel called Rolling in the Deep that is much shorter, but it's from the sister's perspective, and that's also really good if you want to give that one a try too. Last category I'm going to give you is just general creepy weird stuff. First up is Summer Suns by Lee Mandello. Cannot recommend this one enough. This one is one of my absolute all-time favorites. So it's about two friends named Andrew and Eddie, and so Eddie's family died when these boys were fairly young, and so Andrew's family kind of adopted him. So they grew up essentially as brothers. So the two boys get accepted into different graduate programs at Vanderbilt in Nashville. Eddie goes down first, and he goes down about 6 months ahead of Andrew just to kind of get things set up and whatnot, because like he inherited a lot of money when his parents passed away, so he's like, I'm gonna buy us a house, I'm gonna like get us all set up so we're good to go. And then just days before Andrew is supposed to go down there to start his program and to, you know, meet up with Eddie passes away, and it's apparently a suicide, but Andrew doesn't buy that at all. He doesn't think that Eddie's the kind of guy to kill himself, so he's like, you know what, I'm gonna investigate while I'm down there. I'm gonna use my graduate program kind of as a ruse. I'm gonna get into the same circles he was in, and I'm gonna see what the hell happened. So he's kind of playing private investigator a little bit, all while being haunted by some weird apparition that he thinks might be Eddie, but he's not sure. Super, super, super good. Cannot recommend it enough. Next is The Deep by Nick Cutter. It's another horror novel set at the Mariana Trench. Surprise, surprise. The whole place is just terrifying to me. If you want an actual review of this, I did cover it in my first quarter reading wrap-up, I think. I will make sure that I link to it up here somewhere. But anyway, basically, scientists have built a lab at the bottom of the ocean, in the bottom of the Mariana Trench, because they're trying to find a cure for this plague. They've discovered this substance called ambrosia that they think has some pretty good potential to be that cure. Luke, our main character, his brother Clay, is one of the scientists in this research station under the ocean. One day the oil rig that's kind of giving them surface support gets a distress call from Clay, and he's requesting that Luke come down there, and so the military goes and gets Luke. Luke goes to the bottom of the ocean, and things just spiral from there, obviously because it's the bottom of the friggin' ocean. So yeah, that one was really creepy. Nick Cutter does a really fantastic job of just making you creeped out right off the hop. Next one is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Another really good one. I love T. Kingfisher. She does a fantastic job. I think I also covered this one in my first quarter reading wrap-up, so if you want the full review of that, go there. Basically, this woman named Sam, her research project gets put on hold because she's an entomologist, and academia be like that sometimes. So she's like, you know what, I'm gonna go spend some time with my mom. So she goes to her mom's place, and her mom's house used to be her late grandmother's house, and her late grandma was kind of a piece of work. So she notices immediately that the house has kind of been put back from the way that she and her mom had it, so like nice and colorful and homey, to the very creepy, sterile white way that her grandma used to have it. And she also notices that her mom is super jumpy, which she thinks is weird. The longer she stays there, she starts to notice other weird things, like a jar of teeth appears in the backyard, and just things, you know, weird things start happening. Sam decides that she's gonna go digging for the truth while she's there. Another really, really good one. The ending threw me for a loop a little bit, but it was still really good. Cannot recommend it enough. Next is The Fisherman by John Langan. It's about a guy named Abe who decides to take up fishing after his wife passes away. You know, he says a couple times in the book that fishing is the thing that saved him. So after one of his work colleagues loses his entire family in a horrible car accident, he decides, you know what, I'm gonna reach out to this guy, we're gonna start fishing together. So he and Dan are fishing buddies, and so one day Dan learns about this place called Dutchman's Creek, and he's like, hey, we should go try there. My grandpa had a note in his fishing journal about it. You know, we should go check it out. They head up there, it's raining, and they decide to stop at this little diner that they go to frequently, just to see if anybody knows anything about it, because it's apparently kind of hard to find. So the cook tells them the story of Dutchman's Creek, and basically advises them, hey, don't go there. Weird shit happens there, people don't come back. So they do decide to go there, and that is very clearly a mistake. And so most of the book is the story that's being told by the cook, but it's really good. It's a little bit draggy at the beginning, but if you stick with it, I promise it's worth it. Last but not least is This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. I read this last year because it was recommended to me by a friend, and it's also really, really good. So basically, this guy named Tiago loses his wife in an incident in a subway. You know, she's killed in such a way that journalists are trying to sensationalize it, and politicians are trying to use it to bolster their platforms and stuff like that. And so he decides to go move to the middle of nowhere in Colorado in the mountains, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay here. But he soon learns that he cannot run from the events that happened in Chicago, and he also cannot run from the thing that was haunting his and his wife's condo before she died. Again, really, really good. Cannot recommend it enough. enough, it is going to make you want to throw your Alexa smart speaker out the window, I promise you. It's another one of those ones that's just really subtly creepy, and you will enjoy it. So that's all I've got for you today. As always, all of the books that I mentioned today will be linked down below in my Bendable profile, but as always, please, please, please check your local library first. They really appreciate it. Yeah, make sure that you comment down below and tell me what you'll be reading for Summerween if you observe the holiday, and give this video a like if you've made it this far and you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing if you'd like to see more from me. That's all I've got, so stay safe and enjoy your book. Bye!